welcome to Cream City Craft. My name is Lana, and today I wanted to talk about a pattern from the Merchant Mills workbook, the Bantam Vest. So I've made the Bantam Vest 3 times now, and I just wanted to go through all the modifications I made and share my thoughts on the pattern and what my modifications or how my modifications changed the original pattern. So the Merchant Mills workbook, I don't think they have another book with patterns, I don't think, but it just is a collection of patterns, and all of the patterns come inside in a little envelope, and you can just trace them out, and then you have the originals in here. I believe the paper is double-sided, so you can't really cut it out, but if you trace it, then you'll have your hard copy still safe and ready to use another time. The book itself is really beautiful. It's just really inspiring to look at, and their drawings are really nice, and they have very clear instructions, and it's just a really nice experience using a book and like a hard copy as opposed to referencing your phone all the time. So I do appreciate that. The Bantam Vest is, I believe, the first pattern in the book. Here is pattern page, first page, and they had just an explanation of each of the patterns, and then they get into all the details of materials that you would need and sizing, and they kind of give you an overview of the pattern pieces that you'll need. And so my original Bantam Vest, I followed exactly to pattern, and I made the top, and it's a tank top with a slightly curved hem. I believe the back is a little longer than the front, and it has kind of a slight racer back finish or shape, I guess, to the top with bias tape on the edges. And it's a really simple top to make. I think it would be great for a beginner. It's just front and back, and then the bias binding. So my first one I made with the Elizabeth Suzanne linen gauze and in the white, and I don't think she makes that fabric anymore, but it's really nice fabric, and I thought just a simple white tank top would be great and very useful. But turns out for me that it's a little too long to wear just as a tank top. I think because I'm so petite, it just comes down quite far, and it's almost like a tunic length, and I think if I were to wear it as a tank top, I would have needed to take it out like 3 inches at least from the length. So I may do that, another version in the future, just to have a tank top, but I did not. I wanted to just see how the pattern was as it is before I start making adjustments. And then the second one, I decided to make a dress, and the dress version I also used the Elizabeth Suzanne linen gauze in black. And this time I decided to make the dress version, and I believe they have a dress version in the pattern, or in the book here. They show you how to lengthen the pattern. So here is, I believe this is the dress version here. And you can see it's quite narrow all the way down, and the way they recommend doing it is to cut across on the lengthen and shorten lines. Here's their explanation of how to lengthen it, and I followed these instructions exactly. And once I made it, it was far too tight around my lower legs. I couldn't go upstairs. I mean, I could if I hiked the dress up, but it just wasn't comfortable. Yeah, I think part of it is because I am so petite, it just covered so much of my leg. I think if you were taller, you'd have more of your leg exposed, and so your knees wouldn't be so trapped in the dress. But for me, since it came down so low, I felt like my legs were a bit pinned together. So that, I just didn't like having a garment in my closet that wasn't wearable, so I decided to crop it and make a mini dress out of it. And I did that, and it did look cute, but after wearing it a few times, I decided mini dresses are not for me, and I'm just not comfortable in a mini dress. I don't like having to be very kind of, I don't know, aware of my leg positions while I'm sitting. Getting in and out of the car can be a little, tricky. So I decided to make it a long dress again, but I needed to add volume to the bottom because otherwise I still wouldn't be able to move my legs. So what I did was I scrounged together all of the scraps of this linen gauze that I had in my stash. I didn't really have much left, and because this fabric was no longer being produced, I couldn't just go buy more. So I just gathered all the little bits and pieces that I had from previous projects that I made over the years, and I pieced together a big rectangle. And I had barely enough to do a little bit of a gather and attach a slightly gathered panel to the bottom of this mini dress that I had made. So after I made the little panel, it worked, and I felt great in it, and it was comfortable to wear, and I thought it looked good. It wasn't like, it's not my most favorite garment, but it is nice to wear. It's breathable and comfortable, and I think it looks pretty good. And then the last one that I made is this one that I'm wearing now, and it is the pattern. I lengthened the pattern, but I didn't do it on the lengthen and shorten line. I just kept the pattern as is, as a tank top, and I just folded it, or I placed it on the pattern, or I placed the pattern on the fabric on the bias. And this one is made with the Matchy Matchy Sewing Club linen, and I think it's their large check or medium check, I can't remember which one, but it's the natural and black one, and it's very nice. It's a little bit thicker than the linen gauze, I think, but it still has really nice flow, and it still feels very light. And I made this one on the bias, and because I wanted a narrow dress, but I knew from previous one that I didn't want to do it on the grain line, because this pattern is designed to be done on straight grain. So I decided to do it on the bias and just see how it went. Another modification I made was I made the neckline a little lower, and for me, that I like that better on myself. The other one felt a little bit too high. I wanted just a little bit more of an open neck, and yeah, I think it turned out really nice. I just kept the pattern piece in one piece and then drew lines down at a slight angle, so I just made like a kind of an A line, I guess. I mean, the pattern pieces are cut for on the fold, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah, they're cut like, so you only get like 1/2, right? So you cut it on the fold. So for doing it on the bias, I didn't fold the fabric. I just did one layer, and I traced out each side. So I traced one side, and then I flipped it over, and I traced that. And so it was a bit more time consuming and tricky to cut it out. Much more tedious. But yeah, I just drew my extension lines like right on the fabric, and I just did a straight across hem. I did do a hand rolled hem on this one, which I think adds a nice subtle detail. It adds a nice kind of texture to the edge. It doesn't have that hard line of stitching. And yeah, I think this one might be my favorite one. I think all of the fabrics that I used are amazing, but this one is a little bit more fun. The print's a little more, a little more exciting, and yeah, I think it's a really great pattern. I definitely want to make more items from the workbook, especially the blazer, I think, or it's called the Haramere. It's like a jacket, drop shoulder jacket, I believe. but it just looks really nice and relaxed. I think it'd be a great layer for the warmer weather when it's a little chilly in the evenings. Definitely looks more advanced of a project, but I think it would be really, really lovely, and you could make it longer as well, longer jacket. So that would be something that I'm interested in making from here. But as far as the Bantam vest pattern, I think it is great for beginners. I would be wary of just lengthening it as they recommend, because for me, I thought it was quite narrow. So yeah, just I would maybe, you know, check the measurements and see if they work for you. Another thing that I noticed was the pattern pieces for the bias binding like didn't match up to where they were going to be applied. So like the armhole binding turned out like far too long or far too short. I think it was far too long. So I just kind of had to like measure it myself and trim it down to size. I don't think my fabric stretched out that much. I mean, it was significant. It was like significantly longer. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. I usually just measure out my bias. You know, I just take a measurement here and like subtract like a couple centimeters, and then it usually works out fine. So yeah, just something to keep in mind as you're making it. But I would definitely recommend trying it on the bias. I think it is really nice. Even just as a tank top on the bias, I think would be really nice too. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was insightful. If you're curious about this workbook, I think it's a great little thing to have in your collection. If anything, it's just really inspiring to see all the different variations that they have, and the quality of the book, the actual like paper and the printing is really nice. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon.